các đại nghĩa sĩ tân dân chủ, hỡi các anh chị em máu thịt Việt Nam, chúng ta do dân tộc mà hình thành, vì dân chúng mà đấu tranh. Đứng dậy này, truyền cho đến mãi mãi muôn muôn về sau, là màu mỡ cho đất đai, là kết tụ của tiếng Việt, là tự hào, là di sản cho con cháu. Tinh và hồn luôn luôn cùng sông núi, sống thì phải cho lẫm liệt, mà thác cũng phải đáng tự hào, bất khuất và hùng anh.
At this time, we'd like to upbeat the atmosphere a little bit. We'd like to present our signature song of the Provisional National Government of Vietnam. It is titled Vietnam New Democracy, and it will be presented by our newly established choir named Sunrise. Please give a round of applause to welcome our choir, Sunrise. Thank you. At this time, we'd like to take the honor to present a brief biography of our Honorable Prime Minister Đào Minh Quân. Prime Minister Đào Minh Quân is the disciple of the philosopher Lương Kim Deň. Prior to 1975, he was a lieutenant in the armed forces of the Republic of Vietnam and worked at the Ministry of Quảng Trị Sector Headquarters. He was also the commander of the task force Commando Black Tiger in the 1st Military Zone. In order to continue the fight against the communists, Mr. Đào Minh Quân was elected by the votes of 3 Vietnamese generations to assume the role of Prime Minister. He has, since February 16, 1991, carried this title until now. In 1990, he exposed Ho Chi Minh as a Chinese spy on the vessel in UNESCO. He dedicated and used his own financial resources to help Vietnamese refugees in 17 refugee camps across Southeast Asia. And as a result, his actions gained him the acceptance and the support from the US, Kuwait, and Vanuatu. He organized group talks and meetings at local anti-communist organizations. Circa 1991, in San Jose, he was successful in his mission to raise the Vietnam Republic flag on an equal level with the US flag. Prime Minister Đào Minh Quân contributed to another victory when the Criminal Court of the United Nations received and recognized the lawsuit regarding China versus New Vietnamese Democracy. Moreover, he filed the lawsuit in Orange County against Vietnam's communist government. The lawsuit was aimed to confiscate assets that were obtained by elite communists living in the United States. Prime Minister Đào Minh Quân made visits to Vietnamese organizations and set up press conferences and organizations across the US and its allies. In order to continue this success, the truth and only the truth will prevail. The national government of Vietnam strives to make Vietnam a prosperous, beautiful, and free country. The Provisional National Government of Vietnam implores that all parties support the disbanding of the communist regime and urges people to vote in order to elect Prime Minister Đào Minh Quân as President of the 3rd Vietnamese Republic. And this concludes the brief biography of our Honorable Prime Minister Đào Minh Quân. At this time, we'd like to invite our special guests and VIPs to come up and express your speech. The first individual that I would like to introduce is Luật sư Duy Thiên, Bộ Tư pháp, Martin Nguyen from Department of Justice.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Good evening,
No.
Mr. Prime Minister. Distinguished guests. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Martin Nguyen. I am the legal advisor to the Prime Minister. My job, I am an attorney for the Justice Department of the United States of America. So I just flew here last night from Washington, D.C. I'm honored to be here today for the celebration of the Armed Forces of the Republic of Vietnam. Normally, I would prepare my speech, but I thought I would do something a little bit different today, speaking from the heart. What does it mean to celebrate the armed forces? For myself, as a refugee that came to the United States in the 80s, I've learned from a very young age, from my grandfather, from my father, that nothing comes from nothing. And freedom is not free. We must realize and understand that for what we have and what we enjoy have been paved and paid for by blood from those who have come before us and paid the ultimate price. It is said in the Bible, there is no greater love than for a man to lay down his life for his friends. So for today, we honor those who have died for our country, for the country of South Vietnam, and for the United States, the 58,000 US soldiers that have sacrificed their lives so that I, as a Vietnamese refugee, can enjoy the freedom. As an attorney and an advisor to the President and to the Prime Minister, I work closely to help in the following. As mentioned earlier, the Prime Minister worked diligently to prove that Ho Chi Minh is not Vietnamese. He's actually a Chinese communist spy. And it was proven in UNESCO. So, we are now working also within the confines of the law, trying to prove the fleecing and try to end the suffering of the Vietnamese people, and that the Vietnamese communists at the current moment is nothing more than a pawn doing the bidding for the Chinese communists. There are currently lawsuits, litigations that is filed by the Provisional National Government of Vietnam for such Chinese corporation that's doing business in Vietnam, polluting the water, taking away the ability for the Vietnamese people that make the living as fishermen. So we are working extremely hard to make sure that all the wrongdoing are being brought to justice. That's one. The other part that I want to convey is as a young person, I mean young by under the age of 50, okay? is that many of us coming to the United States as refugees living here, the society we live in, the country we live in, so much freedom, so much opportunity. And we get complacent. We tend to forget where we come from, what our duties are. We go to work. First off, we get a good education. We become doctors, lawyers, engineers, so on and so forth. Too busy in our daily lives to really think and ask what we can contribute. So my message and what I ask of those who are under 50 to take an opportunity to think and to acknowledge and to give thanks to all of those who have sacrificed their lives so that you and I can have the freedom that we enjoy today. And we must ask, what is our duty? What do we need to do to ensure the continuance of that freedom for our children, for our grandchildren? And for that is the bigger and more important question. I thank you for listening to what I have to share. And I pray for all of those who have sacrificed their lives so that we can have the freedom. May God bless us all, and may freedom prevail. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Next, I'd like to introduce Trung tướng William Lê, Brigadier General William Lê. Please come up to the podium, sir. Mr. Leonard Stack is on deck.
Honorable Prime Minister, Provisional National Government of Vietnam, Mr. Đào Minh Quân. Generals in the Cabinet, all representative members, ladies and gentlemen. 53 years ago today, the Armed Forces of the Republic of Vietnam was formed by President Nguyễn Văn Thiệu. He established the Republic of Vietnam's cabinet and armed force and took responsibility for people to run and lead the country. Today, our armed force of the Republic of Vietnam has been disbanded all over in the world because the Communist Party of Vietnam has made a great effort to occupy South Vietnam. We have not demobilized since then. We will never forget the mighty and brave soldiers of the Armed Forces of the Republic of Vietnam who fought heroically to protect the South Vietnam from the invading Chinese communists. The Armed Force of the Republic of Vietnam was the most powerful force in the Asian area at the time. President Nguyễn Văn Thiệu was the lieutenant General and the chairman of the National Steering Committee. He had experience in warfare and politics. But in the final years of the war against the North Vietnam and the Chinese Communist Party, he has under the pressure from the great power, including the United States, to sign a peace agreement in Paris, which he was not agreement, which is going to change the policy and strategy in Vietnam. And we believe that if President Nguyễn Văn Thiệu knew that Ho Chi Minh was a spy sent by the Chinese communists to occupy the south of Vietnam, they want to spread the communism in the Southeast Asia. The armed force of the Republic of Vietnam would not have been dissolved everywhere in the world. And today, the people will not be persecuted by the communists. The Chinese and Vietnamese communists are terrorizing our people, poisoning humanity, imprisoning parents, destroying talents, and ruining the moral ethic of Vietnamese nation. Fortunately, we have a very intelligent leader, Prime Minister Tao Vinh. He found out Ho Chi Minh was Chinese spy in 1990. The North Vietnamese communists wanted Ho Chi Minh. He wanted Ho Chi Minh as official, and he want Ho Chi Minh as the man in the world. On the birthday of Ho Chi Minh, North Vietnamese want to send the faith profile to UNESCO. And Mr. Prime Minister required UNESCO ask the North Vietnamese communists send the fingerprint of Ho Chi Minh at Baden, so that they compare with fingerprint of Nguyễn Ai Quốc at French. The North Vietnamese communists did not respond, so those was brought. The root of the communist spy Ho Chi Minh was cut off by Prime Minister Tao Vinh in 1990, but remained alive because today the policy of the Vietnamese Communist Party requested foreign pirates Vietnam and Vietnamese 1,000 miles away, and Resolution 36 aimed to give money to these stamps and fit the senior communist Vietnam. They spend money and children to the United States to infiltrate and invest our area. But the Vietnamese Communist Party did not expect the Provisional National Government of Vietnam to be accompanied by the US government to shut down the account of Vietnamese Communist Party, which include up to $617 billion due to Magnitsky Act signed by President Obama in December 2016. The French has been fallen, that treason now. Provisional National Government of Vietnam called for confidence in the country and foreigners to stand together to root out this term by referendum of the Third Republic of Vietnam for restoration of the country. Today, June 19, on this occasion, the Armed Forces of the Republic of Vietnam would like to commemorate and honor the late President Nguyễn Văn Thiệu. We, the soldiers of the Third Army of the Republic of Vietnam, and also the soldiers of the Second Republic of Vietnam, we brave the leadership of Prime Minister Đào Minh Quân. We resolutely regain ancestral land, watching all the souls of the heroes sacrificed for the country. The Provisional National Government of Vietnam, we also free up people from anguish and suffering because the guideline of Prime Minister Đào Minh Quân to be non-communist to become republic. Chinese communists have flooded in Vietnam. Vietnamese communists resigned cowardly with the enemy. The foreigners were apathetic. The people in the country were scared. And the soldiers of the Republic could not join Provisional National Government of Vietnam, despite the call with the Third Republic of Vietnam. Let us show the reason of communist able to take back the country and chase enemy out of front. With referendum, legislative policy, and also the people design internationalism to bring the Third Republic of Vietnam in the homeland without a bloodshed. In addition to referendum, the government also has established ID card to replace the identified card of the communists, which is more beneficial. The Vietnamese people are still in the eyes of our world. Please do not delay. Let's vote Prime Minister Đào Minh Quân to become President of the Republic of Vietnam so the country would not be lost in China's hand. We also see the value when it is not in our hand. Let's make the Vietnam free again. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Brigadier General. I'd like to take the honor to invite Mr. Leonard Stack, Republic Party. And that will be Pastor David Adams.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's certainly an honor to be here this evening to represent the Republican Party. We're a minority here in the state of California, but we do show up on occasion when invited. Especially, it's my honor to remember with you the brave men and women of the Republic of Vietnam and their armed forces who laid down their lives in battle and even today are here today at these tables working tirelessly for freedom and democracy in their homeland of Vietnam. The struggle for freedom and individual rights is the basic platform of the Republic of Vietnam. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Đào Minh Quân, the Vietnamese recognize that all the citizens deserve the rights that we have here in America. The right to assemble, free speech, freedom of religion, a free press, and all the God-given rights that cannot be and must not be taken away by oppression and the tyranny of communism. The current communist regime treats the citizens of Vietnam like they are slaves, and even their very lives are in danger for speaking out against oppression and tyranny. The Provisional National Government of the Third Republic of Vietnam will change the future for all the citizens in Vietnam with God's help. This government seeks a free and fair election in Vietnam, true representative government, where all the citizens have a choice for freedom and a better life for themselves, their families, and future generations. I have known the Honorable Dao Minh Quan for many years. He has worked tirelessly for the citizens of Vietnam. An officer in the war himself, a resistance leader, he escaped the re-education camp and by his own initiative became a naval captain on the open seas and saved many lives. He landed, as many Vietnamese did, in refugee camps. A natural-born leader, he organized the camps, formed a new government, and saved many lives. As the freely elected president of the Third Republic of Vietnam, President Dao Minh Quan still works each day to bring freedom and democracy to all the citizens of Vietnam, whether in the homeland or wherever they may be in the world. His government supports just causes, freedom for all citizens. This is an honorable path forward for the Vietnamese people. This is the way God plans for His citizens and His people, His children, to live in this world. This vision of the Provisional National Vietnamese government is the vision of all people in every country, and it deserves a chance for success. We support our President on this Remembrance Day of shared sacrifice when so many men and women laid down their lives for the cause of freedom. May God bless the people of Vietnam with freedom and democracy, and may God bless our President, the Honorable Dao Minh Quan, and may God bless all the citizens of Vietnam with peace and freedom in all generations. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marston, for your contribution. At this time, I'd like to introduce an individual who probably arrived right after the introduction. Would Mr. Roy Megatran from the Ride the Thunder stand up so everyone can see you, sir? Thank you. And I am, as the program presenter, is specifically not mention this person because he's special to the point where the next three speeches are intended for the same person. So if you know who you are, please rise. Mr. Frank Herring. We always say the best for last. I'd like to take the honor to introduce Pastor David Adams, and pastor's speech will be intended for Mr. Frank Herring. Would you please come up, sir? I like to say that this congregation is like a perfectionist, so we just have a little bit of technical difficulty.
I'll just start this way. I'm so glad that we honor our flags. Aren't you? We got a president that honors our flags. Hallelujah. I'm here for a very special person. That's Frank Honoring, his wife Rhoda. You know, there's certain people that you meet and you think, God must have just stopped and spent a little extra time making them. You wish you were like them and that everybody else was like them. My wife and I met them first of the year as we were invited to come to their shop for a special news. My wife's a country western gospel singer, actress, wow, everything, Dolly Parton impersonator. My wife, biggest part of all. But as we got there, we found some people that really were looking to help other people with, it seemed like nothing coming back to them. And we became very close friends. We go different places together. And we found somebody that the heart was what you wish America was like. And I was so thrilled when I heard that he was asked to be an ambassador to Vietnam. Because that's a great country on our side. My wife's first husband was a staff sergeant in Vietnam. And in his last tour, he had the premonition that he's not going to be coming home. He said that. It took 2 MPs to literally rip them apart and put him on the plane. And sure enough, a couple months later, he was killed there. So the Vietnam flag flies very proudly in our home, along with all the medals. Those that paid the supreme sacrifice for the freedoms that we have and sometimes don't really stop and recognize. So thank you for fighting to keep those people free and to bring others into the freedom that we know. Frank wears a lot of hats. I'm going to brag about him for a little bit. I don't know how he can do all the things that he does. We have a gospel TV ministry called Precious Promises to David and Wendy Lynn Adams. We had them on our show, and immediately the owner of the network came running in and says, you've got to have your own show. You've got to have your own show. And immediately Frank and Rhoda started theirs, called Kingdom Come. And they reach out to the oppressed wherever they're at. He was also one of the heads of the World Vision Ministry. Wherever there's catastrophe, they're there doing different things for those people that are hurting. As we were going to the show the first time, Frank noticed as we're driving along, he says, you know, every business and every home here is behind wrought iron bars. Fences and their windows and their doors are all barred up. And he checked with the police and found, yes, this is one of the most corrupt areas of LA. So Frank doesn't just let things go. He started things right away to bring community leaders, religious leaders together to do something about it. His last 2 shows have centered on that. Because his thing is, we don't go in there to get these gang members and put them in prison. We go in there to change their hearts until they become the leaders to bring all of the others out of the corruption that is there. If he sees a need, he's doing it. You know, I think that probably all of us baby boomers, how many are baby boomers here? Yeah. I'm from the very early, 1946. So I'm old. Yeah, that's right. But it's touched all of our lives. I said my wife's husband was killed there, but through it I got my wife. Oh, did I mention she's a Dolly Parton impersonator too? Her Dolly are close friends. But she's in Egypt right now trying to get kids out of the sex slave things there. And last year in Nigeria doing things there too. And Frank and Rhoda have helped make that possible for us there. But just Vietnam for a little bit. When I went to college, Frank missed the draft by 3 numbers, wasn't it? 3 numbers. When I went in, they gave me a classification 4D because I was in divinity school. And I took my best buddy with me, and he was DNF student. I pushed him through school all the way. He became my roommate as soon as he got there. He just threw everything overboard and flunked out, and he was in Vietnam that fast. Kept writing him, calling him, and finally he came back to take his friend my senior year. But he's a totally different person. I mean, he is wake up screaming several times a night from just the nightmares of things that he had gone through in the war in Vietnam. We'd be walking, we're out in the redwoods there, it'd be raining a lot, but if a branch snapped or there's a loud noise, he'd hit the ground immediately, books go flying out in the mud, things like that. But from that DNF student, he was almost straight A's after that, had no direction in his life, became a leader of the Scouts program for boys. Vietnam had a lot of good things to do. For a lot of people who did not have direction, they had become men during that time. I lived in Westminster, by Little Saigon, and I had neighbors, and they'd tell the horror stories of what they had come out of. Let me just tell one. I had a close friend, a business friend lady from my wife and I, and she had become Christian 2 days before. They escaped on a boat, and the next day she came down with a massive case of the measles. The boat was so packed they couldn't even hardly sit down on it. The captain goes, we're throwing her overboard so the whole ship doesn't become contaminated. The mom pleaded, please wait for the morning time. That night, the boat was boarded by the pirates. Of course, they massacred the men, threw them overboard, did all kinds of hideous things, stole everything, raped all the women, except for her, because they wouldn't get close to her because of the measles. They went and blew a hole in the bottom of the boat there and took off for it to sink. But just as the boat was going down, it hit the ground of an island that was there. And immediately, she was totally free of the measles. But the things that the people have gone through here that lived in Vietnam, because now they wanted the freedoms that we just enjoy and sometimes take so for granted. Oh, that God would allow Vietnam to become what you are sitting here for tonight. That's the purpose of doing these things. And so we pray that God will continue to guide you, give you the wisdom, the strength for President Dow, for all of you, the horrors that many of you have gone through, but direct you until all of Vietnam has the freedom that God wants for every human being. God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor, for your contribution.
Anh hùng cứu nguy dân Việt, quên thân mình ngày ngày chung lo việc nước. Một lời thề vì dân chiến đấu, không ngại ngùng vì nước hy sinh cho muôn đời tổ quốc quang vinh. Việt Nam đào minh quân, dân đang chờ ngày vui no ấm, xóa tan bao nỗi lầm than. Việt Nam đào minh quân, xây cơ đồ hồn thiên sông núi, ánh dương lên soi sáng khắp địa cầu.